I also participate in the Alliance of Overlooked Neighbors, and all of us presenting today actively participate in that group. It's a coalition for persons with lived experience with homelessness and allies who are supporting the cause for elevating that voice. And then Sam will be here momentarily. We may go ahead and get started while we're waiting for her.
You may. I'm gonna give them the microphone because we only have one. Am I being loud enough? Yeah. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to be asking some questions for them to answer, and then at the end, when you guys, we should have some time, ideally, if everything goes well, to be able to ask some additional questions, and then I'll give some information about peer support and how we use it within our agency as well. So, Roger, when did you first experience homelessness?
Oh, I don't like this. Okay.
Microphones are great.
So I experienced homelessness, starting when I was 19, I guess, up until I was 27, 28 years old. Pretty much from the time I was, kicked out of the nest, I guess. But my homelessness experience on the street, as it were, was about 3.5 years. The time I was like 25 to the time I was 28 or so.
Where did you stay while you were experiencing homelessness?
I couch surfed until I ran out of couches. And then it was just on sidewalks and behind buildings and outside pretty much in tents and things like that.
What was key to your survival while you were out on the streets?
I would say it's best to stick to yourself at night, so that your camping spot doesn't become public knowledge and get overcrowded. That's a good way to get kicked out of your camp. Also during the day, you need to know where resources are to survive, like where to find food, water, shower, hygiene, and things like that.
What factors contributed to you having difficulty keeping or finding housing?
Stigma. You're not given a fair shake as a homeless person. No one wants to deal with the homeless and no one wants to employ you when you're homeless. So it's very much a self-perpetuating problem.
What do you want others to know about the homelessness experience in the Wichita Central County area?
They're just people trying to make it, and it's really difficult when society treats them as a burden to deal with instead of seeing them as down on their luck.
What would you want others to know about homelessness and substance use?
Substance use seems inevitable. There is a great amount of peer pressure on the streets to use because pretty much everybody on the streets is already using. You feel that you have run out of options and you're tired of being denied for everything. And it's kind of the only go-to to make yourself feel better as an individual. So yeah.
Is there anyone you met that has been key to you regaining stable housing?
Richard over here. I knew him on the streets and he went before me. He was and is a great role model for getting housed and finding recovery.
Can you speak to how the lack of privacy impacted you while you were out on the streets?
Yeah, it makes you crazy. You feel like you're always working to please other people. You're always kind of working externally instead of internally. You don't have any time to think because you're always dealing with other people. So it's very hard to deal with problems. It makes it very difficult to maintain good mental health.
What's the hardest part about getting back into housing?
Reintegration into society. You have to learn how to be a productive member of society again, or for the first time. There's a close-knit community on the streets. When one person gets housing, everyone wants to ride their coattails. And this became a great threat to me maintaining my housing. That's it for me.
That's it. So this is Sam Sherpel, and Sam, could you just say a couple of things about yourself?
And I am 80 years old. I'm a lifelong learner, thanks to WSU and their courses. I do have my master's, again, thanks to scholarships at WSU. And I'm eligible to go on in my lifelong learning, and I hope to do that. I will say that I'm built like a bulldog with bulldog teeth, in that I hold on with my teeth and I won't let go of good goals, even though they're impossible. And I just hold on.
So
And hold on.
when it's almost
Way back in the night, I first came to, I worked at Beechcraft, and there are good years and bad years. And that's what I learned at Beechcraft, that we can be a good worker and ride through bad years. And so I came from Tucson, Arizona, and that's where you bring money. And I never knew that you could go through I never knew of kind town. And Wichita was a kind town when you were down on your luck, because they had places to go for food, and I was too embarrassed to do that. But you did have places at Beechcraft to go for food, even though we didn't do that. And
so your first experience was in the 70s, but you had a more recent experience.
I did. So of homelessness this time, and now or 9 months that I was homeless this time, and just eight days at my apartment. Reflection in April. So I'm very grateful to the president, and there's more programs in the works, and I'll be ready for them when they come into being.
Where did you stay while you were experiencing homelessness?
Let me turn my page. I was very blessed. I never had to stay out on the streets. I stayed at, I'm so nervous that I can't remember the names. Humankind, is that the name of it? Yeah, Humankind Inn was the first place that I stayed. And I'm very grateful, because I waited for, well, the first time I waited for over a month. Then there was an opening. Would be like people coming street, and they'd lost all of their stuff, and it was like going to sleep under a tree, and just these horrific tales. And then when my time was up at Humankind, for lack of other words, praise God, on that very day, the Salvation Army called me And they said, I remember you from month. Yes, we have an opening. Yes, we can take you today. Is that fair?
Yes.
And Salvation Army has been so good to me. And they helped me with this place that I found out about. And I have moved into that, what did I say, 8 days ago. And they were very gracious to me and they got me some dishes and just wonderful things. They've been very good to me.
So one of the reasons you wanted to speak today was to highlight the impact of homelessness on the aging population. What would you like to share about that?
This is very vital. The main thing I want to say is when you're elderly, you're on this street. If you don't get help, in my opinion, you're gonna die. And I really stand on that platform. It sounds corny, but I'm here because God helped me. I got that over now. I had help through kind people. I had rapid rehousing. I had Section 8. You guys helped me with your different services. And I wouldn't be alive if it wouldn't have been for that. Breakthrough came and got me in their van every morning and took me to their building. And they gave me a noontime lunch. That was a substantial meal that gave me protein. And Humankind gave me the meals that I ate for the other meals. And every time I had a diabetes attack and passed out unconscious, they called the fire EMS, and they came and they rescued me and brought me back to life. And I just saw so much tragedy. I saw strokes. I saw heart attacks, obviously broken hearts. People had amputated parts of their bodies. It was just horrific, the things that happened when you don't have support. And we need to give them the things that they need. And the elderly, your body just gives out. So we do need to support the elderly, especially because your body just can't live on the street. I hope that I've said that the way that it needs to be said. But also it was cute because some of the people that fell in love and carried on their life after they left together. And that was sweet. So that was sweet.
What can you tell me about your experience?
Okay. I was one of the first groups, and I think I was in the first group that graduated with peer support. And that was back in the 1990s. And one of our first teachers was Sue Budd. And Sherry, I can't remember her last name. She passed. But
Bledsoe.
yes, thank you. And I said a poem for her at the CAC last year. I have trouble with names. Yeah, and they were the teachers back then. And that meant so much to me to go through that peer support training. Peer support is where you don't tell a person what to do with their life. You just share with the person how it was with your life. And, you teach by example. If I have it right. To me, that's the only way that really works. Because in the 1960s, we had the doctor that knew exactly how to make your life right. Well, that's not really the truth. And as functioning adults, we have the intelligence to figure it out ourselves. And that's the way that we can do it. We have to learn. We have to seek out training. And I'm so glad that we have the intelligence to sit on our knees and learn better skills. I so support the peer system.
Okay,
It's been life-giving for me.
I have a few questions for Richard now. When did you first experience homelessness?
Actually, I experienced some as a teenager, young adult, and wound up with good jobs, marriage, and all that. And then at age 42, following a divorce, I wound up homeless again.
Where did you stay while you're experiencing homelessness?
Like Roger, I did a lot of couch surfing, but in the end, I actually went by myself a ways away from everybody else just to have my privacy. And my last winter was in -degree weather, all by myself alone.
What was key to your survival during that experience?
I had one good friend that loaned me a couple of 0-degree sleeping bags, and I had like 2 other sleeping bags along with that, and a Coleman propane grill. That between those, I had enough to keep me alive in the frigid temperatures.
What was the turning point in you regaining housing?
Well, I first went up in jail, and the mental health court, it got me involved with ComCare, where I got my first mental health diagnosis at 48 years old. And they got me involved with Breakthrough, and then I became more involved with the mental health and recovery. And I was able to become stable enough to get into housing and start working.
What would you want others to know about the homelessness experience in Wichita?
Despite all the stigmas, that not everyone out there isn't just a drug addict. I mean, I used drugs while I was out there as my coping skill. It is hard for anyone. With no privacy, you basically are living hour by hour. You don't have a 2-year plan. You don't have a 5-year plan. You have a 2-hour plan. And that's all the further you can think.
What do you want others to know about homelessness and mental illness?
Homelessness by itself can cause a mental illness. And if you already have a problem, it's going to compound it exponentially.
You mentioned that substances were a coping skill. Could you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, I used to help forget. the situation I was in. I used to help keep me awake, alert, and safe while I was around others. If I couldn't find a safe place to sleep, I had to use to stay awake. And that was the only thing that, could keep me safe.
What challenges did you experience once you were in your home?
Well, the first thing is that euphoria that I actually have a home. Even though I had a good life before, you have to relearn everything all over again. And it took me a while to realize that it was just mine. It was hard to sleep because you have to get back into that actual routine of sleeping. Because on the streets, you used to be woke up and moved along or whatever. And so you have to get back into that routine. And the sheer boredom and loneliness of just being by yourself again in an apartment by yourself.
Could you speak on the lack of privacy and how that impacted you?
That you just can't sleep by yourself. You can't go to the restroom by yourself. You don't have any privacy anywhere you go. Everywhere outdoors is in the public, and it just keeps you more on edge because you have to look around and make sure there ain't nobody around, and that's a hard thing to find.
So we're talking about the adjustment between living on the streets and then regaining housing, and that being a tough adjustment. How do street rules differ from once you're rehoused? The rules.
There's a huge difference. Street rules are, you have to take care of a conflict immediately, or you appear weak. And if you appear weak, everyone else is going to take advantage of it. So there's a whole different mindset on the street. To keep yourself safe, you got to be a bad guy, no matter what. And so then you have to relearn society rules to be polite and think of others.
Is there anything that could have been changed in your experience that would have shortened your homeless experience or made it easier to navigate?
Having a peer would have helped me. Having more support, and the more people that you have as your supports, the easier it is. And that's the whole reason I wanted to become a peer, is to help others navigate the system that I struggled through.
So I'm just going to provide a little bit more information about peer support and how we're using it within housing. Sam had given some information. A peer is someone who has lived experience or expertise within that area. So peer support began in Kansas. I think we were thinking in the 1990s.
I think so.
And the focus has been with mental illness and substance abuse. It's really well utilized within our community on those two topics. And while those two topics do overlap with the homeless community quite a bit, there is a unique use within the homeless community for having a peer who understands the things that I could not have understood, the details that they've shared with you today. So we use peers within the homeless community. We have at Breakthrough since 2021. We have been using peers in other areas prior to that, but since 2021, we've specifically used them for housing. There's a certain level of trust that can be built between someone who has that lived expertise and someone who's not really sure they can trust the system. And I am the system in that regard. When somebody sees me and they're not going to automatically trust me. I think everybody who's worked with individuals who've had a lot of trauma within the system knows you're not trusted. You earn that. You don't just automatically get it. But when someone says, I sat in a room one time and a man said to me, you're not going to help me. Nobody's going to help me. And then Richard said, well, 2 years ago, I was in a tent. And it was a tent I made. It wasn't even a tent that I had. And I was using drugs and I was homeless and I didn't have any hope either. But now I'm working and we'll help you. And it made the difference with that individual, even considering whether or not someone could help them. So we have been pairing peer support with case management because there's tons of paperwork and systems navigation. That case management is really important, but that lived experience is really important. We have also been working to try to increase the number of people who are trained with peer support. So we've been helping people access KDAS provides the training for free, but sometimes people just need the support to be able to get through it. The phase 1 is completely online. Phase 2 was on Zoom. Now they have some in-person options. That's a 2.5 day training, but it is free and just helping people navigate that so that they can have that career opportunity and that ability just to use it. We've had some people go through peer support. Maybe they're not working that way in the field right there, but it gives them the value of that, what they have experienced in their life. It is an expertise. It's not just an experience. Pardon me just a second, my brain shut off when I was telling that story. So, because I went to back then, so just let me catch up. So just a little bit of information about the support within the systems with utilizing peer support. The federal government, the federal strategic plan to end homelessness specifically noted peer support. Part of their strategic plan is to incentivize, strengthen, and expand opportunities for people with lived experience to serve as outreach workers and service providers through programs like peer recovery support, community health workers, and Medicaid HCBS workers. HUD also specifically supports involving persons with lived experience within homelessness within the HUD funded programs, both through employing peers and through placing people with lived experience on their boards. A couple of notes, if you have a board opening and you're really wanting to place a person with lived experience, Aon would love to help with that. You could reach any of us. You could reach Cole if you need somebody who has that lived experience who is ready to take something on, like being on a board. We would love to help connect you. So right now, one of the grants that we're working on is allowing us to look for peers. So we are actively, if anyone knows someone who has that lived experience who is wanting to get that training, whether they want to specifically work within a peer role or they're wanting to do something, but have that training behind them, or maybe they're already working in the field and they just want to go through that training so they can see how their experience makes them an expert in the field, please reach out to me. I would love to help them with getting that training done. It is online, so they can do it on their own. Or they can come to our lab and do it in our lab. We can help them get through phase 1. We do supplement in a few topics because the KDADS training focuses on mental illness and substance use. We sprinkle in some things specific to housing, particularly things like doing home visits, helping them connect to mental health care, and if you're attending those appointments with them, because we have done that, what that looks like and how to help a person make sure that they're getting that care. Sorry, guys, there's not a lot of processing happening in the afternoon, is there? Also, those AON meetings, if you have somebody who just wants to dip their toe into what that advocacy looks like or wants to get active in that, can feel like they have a community of recovering and housing. Folks shared some of the challenges of once you get housing, it can feel a little bit lonely. That transition is hard, and you have that really close knit community if you're on the streets. If you have somebody who wants to feel that somewhere else, AON meets every Thursday, 1:15. It's supposed to be an hour-long meeting. I think we run an hour and a half usually. There's a lot of conversation afterwards, because that sense of community is really important. They are hosted at Breakthrough. It's a COC work group, but it is hosted at Breakthrough Thursday afternoons, 1:15 to 2:30-ish. Are there any questions? Yeah.
So are there criteria for becoming peer support? Can you be actively living on the streets and be a peer support? Or are there best practices with that?
So best practice would be to be in recovery, because you have to fill your own cup before you can fill others. So it is good. Now, if someone is just wanting to be, like, they see that as a vision, I'm going to get through that recovery, the AON would be a really good group. We have people who come in who are literally homeless, who get to do some of that advocacy, get to know the systems that surround homelessness within the community, and start to get that sense of their voice being heard. And then they may move into that peer work once they're stabilized.
Follow up. So from your lived experience, your expertise, once you were able to get housed and become more stabilized, and obviously working back in with the population, which you have had experience. Some of my conversations with folks is that challenge of the power structure. Did you experience anything with feeling like, how do I articulate this? Those who are still in and you're now getting out, like you're feeling better than we are, that kind of thing?
Who wants to take that?
Yeah, no, I do not feel like I'm better than anyone
Well,
else.
no, I mean, have you experienced that from those
Did you
who
get
are
that
still in
feedback
that?
from others?
Well,
That
what do you mean?
did you get feedback from others that, oh, you got a place you think you're better than me?
No, not really. Yeah, it's being a peer is more about, being like on the same level as they are. And that's where I try to bring it is, I may be in a place now, but I've got tons of experience and I know what you're going through. I know how to get you out of this, and I can help you out. As long as you're willing to do some of that work yourself, I'll stand right beside you and help you. Yes.
First of all, thank you all for sharing your story and your experience. And what advice would you give me that would help encourage the young people that I worked with whom are now in a stable place, and encourage them to have a voice so that they can join advisory groups, become a peer support specialist? What advice would you give me to share with them to encourage them to participate so that they can be a peer to other young adults that are experiencing homelessness, and kind of share that so that they have that peer connection? Because coming from me, right, it's the same. We're service providers. There's no trust.
Ask them the question, do you feel like your voice is being heard? And if they say no, send them my way. I will help them get their voice heard.
Okay, sure, you said so. I have witnesses.
Do you feel like there's an assumption that no one's listening at this point? Just when
When-
they're in that
Yes,
mode of like.
when you're in that 24-hour mode of being on the streets, yes, nobody's listening to you. That is exactly how you feel out there, is that nobody's listening to you. Nobody's gonna help. Yeah, they say they're gonna help me, but it's gonna take forever. I'm not really counting on that because it's not happening today. So, yeah, send them our way. We'll help get that voice out.
No, you're right though, because I feel like, folks do get frustrated, saying, well, I want things now, and you told me that, you know, we're applying for housing, you told me we would, you know, all these things would happen, and that change doesn't come overnight, then they get really frustrated, especially right now. We have several people holding on to housing vouchers, right, Section 8 vouchers, and no one will rent to them. And that is completely out of our control, but I see their frustration, and we don't know what to say or do to give them comfort that, it's going to just keep trying. We're here with you. I actually have a staff member that probably stepped out to go help somebody because they're asking for 3 months rent up front. So what can we say to help encourage people that you've come this far and it's not us, and that, but we're the ones that's there. So they get frustrated and still what do we say to keep their hope alive? Go to Richard. You said it.
Well, I'll be happy to talk to him. It took me a while. I think we've got the system going smoother now than when I entered. So, although there's limited housing right now, so it's gonna slow down a little bit, I think. But absolutely, yeah. So my way, I'll tell them, hey, I know what you're going through. I know it's rough. It is in the process. It will happen. It just doesn't seem like it's gonna happen because it's not happening today.
What you're describing is peer support.
Yes, exactly.
That walk alongside component.
So again, the same thing. Thank you for sharing your stories. It is so important to be able to hear that. My name is Angela Johnson. I am the grant coordinator for Project Hope, which is a new partnership with Breakthrough. So we're excited about that. One of the things that we're looking to do through Project Hope is have an education campaign that really educates the community on truly understanding homelessness and what it means to be unhoused and the true lived experience of those who are unhoused. So my question for each of you is, what would you say the community really needs to understand about what it means to have this experience, and how to best come together to support and to provide supports? And that can be from service providers to the general public. How can the community best understand the actual experience of homelessness and being unhoused, and then how to be a support moving forward?
That it can literally happen to anyone. It doesn't matter your race, creed, religion, social class, economic class, it can happen to you. I mean, as we found out during COVID, that was out of everybody's control, but it hurt all of us hard. And so it can literally happen to any one of us. And and it's hard. It's hard, period. It doesn't matter who you are, how much experience you have with anything, it's hard. I have 30 years of camping experience. That helped. But homelessness isn't camping. You know, you don't have that option of, okay, I've spent 2 nights on the ground and now I'm going home to warm, safe bed. It's a 24/7 camp out. And the more people that can understand that it's that rough, and that we need to do everything in our power to house every single person. Yes.
So one of you mentioned that once you got into your housing, you had to learn. Well, how to relive, and one of those challenges was to have folks on your coach stream, you know. So what is it, how did you learn with that, to where you could maintain your housing? And what would you want providers who are trying to support folks in that, that help us know what to say?
So, what I mean by people trying to ride on my coattails when I got a house is, the script kind of flipped on me, where I was a couch surfer before, and now all of my friends are now couch surfing off of me. So in my experience, there wasn't any real way to dissuade someone from doing that. It was, I just kind of had to write it out, I guess, and I lost a lot of friends over it, but at the same time, I was kind of coming to my own recovery through that, and I've been in recovery for 2.5 years now, and they say you have to change your people, places, and things, right? So you have to get rid of all those buddies that you had in your crap, and so I don't know. In my experience, I just had to write it out and cross my fingers that everything was going to be okay, and eventually, everything's fine now. So the only thing I could say is, when telling someone, and granted, I knew going into this, when I got my place, I knew that it was contingent on, I was the only one gonna be living there and all that. I knew the rules, but that didn't stop everyone else from latching on to me, you know what I mean? And at a certain point, it wasn't up to me. It was, how am I supposed to say no to these people who I've been on the streets for so long with, and one night turns into 4 months real quick. So, yeah, I don't.
Was it helpful for those of us to play the heavy on your behalf, or how would you recommend?
I would definitely recommend, because I've had to play the heavy since I came in this role, and that's exactly it. Cut your client the leniency, but be the heavy to the other person that is being the leech.
Question, housing, what type of housing? I mean, I see stories about little houses, I see stories about apartments, single family. What type of housing is needed in our community to provide for people like yourselves and the challenges you've had?
Say affordable 1-bedroom apartments is a good start, Right now I live in a 1-bedroom apartment that's $725 a month. And, it's only 600 square foot. That's over $1 a square foot, which is,
Which is also higher than the current rate for the vouchers.
Right.
Luckily, he got in before they raised the rent.
even when I moved in,
Yeah.
it was still high for my voucher.
Yeah.
So I'd say affordable, like, we just need affordable.
What is the voucher? What's it worth?
I'd say like 685.
It's fair market value. If you look up fair market value for our area, even Google that, it'll give you a chart. It varies based off of the size of the unit and the location within the US, but it's a number designated by HUD.
The rents increase and those numbers are on looked at every so often. It's extra.
So keep up.
There's also this unspoken thing going on right now where a lot of landlords are trying to get rid of housing vouchers and not accept them anymore. So that's also an issue within our community is landlords
And
acceptance
that's
of housing.
because of what? Why are they wanting to get rid of it?
Because they want to raise their prices and housing vouchers aren't willing to negotiate with them.
Yeah, housing vouchers at set at the fair market value. And especially with, our rising, inflation and everything here lately, everything has been going up. So the apartment complexes are raising their rents higher than what everything else is able to keep up with.
I think we have time for one more question.
Thank you.
Sure.
I want to add a postscript to, a thought that was mentioned earlier and why I purposely mentioned in my introduction that I have a master's is because I wanted to share that homelessness can hit anybody, no matter how stable you are, no matter how much money you have popped back. But the first thing that goes is your savings. And the next thing that goes, if I can say it this way, is your mind. And so when we were talking about resources, when you move into your home, that you have to reclaim, some that you have to discard are the friends that are pushing on you. You also have to discard your bad habits that you learned while you were homeless. And I call it Swiss cheese. And so you have to see that those habits aren't really helping you. And even though they helped you while you were homeless, now you're starting a new life, a positive life. And it's time to get with a new life. If I've said that appropriately.
Anything else, Alicia? Well, thank you all for attending the peer support with homelessness session. And I want you guys to give them another round of applause. Not able to be transparent about a situation such as that. And so just thank you. One more. And just a side note, this is so close to me because in my own life experience, I lost an uncle last February. He was found at the Lawrence Diner, deceased outside in the cold. And so it's real. And we have to, as a community, do more and try harder to not pass the judgment. It could be anybody. So thanks again.